Michael, clinical psychologist at Grow Psychology. We're doing something a little bit different today. I'm going to take you through a book review, part of an ongoing series I hope to do, where I'm currently reading through a book and I'm going to share a little bit of what my thoughts are about that book with you. I hope you find this as interesting as I do. Today I'm doing a book called Daring Greatly by Brene Brown, which talks a lot about shame and vulnerability, and I find it's really useful in talking with my clients in regards to how it impacts on our lives, the anxiety that we experience, and the way that we try and manage our feelings of shame and vulnerability. So I'm just going to read you a couple of quotes and then I'll give you my brief thoughts on that. I'm currently on chapter 4, the Vulnerability Armory, and two things sort of stood out to me, so I'm just going to read that to you now. This is about disconnection. We may have a couple of hundred friends on Facebook, plus a slew of colleagues, real-life friends and neighbours, but we feel alone and unseen. Because we are hardwired for connection, disconnection always creates pain. Feeling disconnected can be a normal part of life and relationships, but when coupled with the shame of believing that we are disconnected because we're not worthy of connection, it creates a pain that we want to numb. And the second quote continues on from that, around numbing, which is that people will do almost anything to escape this combination of condemned isolation and powerlessness. Shame often leads to desperation, and reactions to this desperate need to escape from isolation and fear can run the gamut from numbing to addiction, depression, self-injury, eating disorders, bullying, violence, and suicide. So it's a bit heavy going, but what is really important is thinking about the way that we try and deal with strong emotions. And typically we have three ways of coping: avoidance, overcompensation, and surrendering. Surrendering would just be giving in to those overwhelming feelings, perhaps depression or anxiety. But avoidance is one of the bigger things that we tend to do, and what I see a lot in my practice. And by that I mean simply it might be things like drinking alcohol before you go out to a party so that you feel ready to go. Or it might be you have to be the life of the party so that you drink more so that you can get your courage to talk to people that you don't know. It could be saying yes to things that you don't really want to say yes to, agreeing to things so you don't let people down or you don't feel bad about yourself for saying no. It could be trying to be dominant in order to avoid fears of not being strong enough, not being a good enough person. So we do a bunch of things that try to avoid these really strong feelings, which Brene talks about in terms of shame about ourselves and the vulnerability of showing others. How do we get through this? Well, ultimately this comes down to, are we making decisions that are in line with our values and that take us towards the life that we want to be living? So if we're making value choice decisions and towards that life, then we need to make room for the discomfort. In this case, Brene would say making room for vulnerability in order to progress in the way that we want to progress. So if I'm going to a party and I don't like the fact that I get too drunk, then the choices I'm making is I'm going to drink less or not at all, but I have to make room for the potential anxiety that I experience. Payoff for that might be that I'm more true to myself and I actually engage better with other people because I'm more present. Other ways of dealing with it are naming our feelings, being aware of what we're experiencing. I'm feeling anxious. I'm having anxious thoughts. I'm worried about whatever it might be. These are really important things. Most of the time we spend a lot of time trying to avoid thinking about them, trying to avoid coping and expressing the emotion, and we do other things to take us out of that state, but that leads to dissatisfaction, stress, perhaps more anxiety. Things build up as we go along. So really important book. I hope to come back to it and take some other parts of this book and speak to you about it. And if you'd like to get yourself a copy, it's Daring Greatly. It's available very commonly at most bookstores. And I hope you found this useful. Thanks. Bye.